Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and this short update on the 29th of March of 2023 we are going to discuss the Ukrainian forces. To be more precise, we're going to discuss the forces that Ukrainians are going to deploy within the nearest future to begin the greatest counteroffensive operation. A lot of sources are saying that Ukrainians currently are creating around 3 military corps. Some sources are saying that the number of forces that Ukrainians are going to deploy in the very nearest future as a result of previous mobilization is around 75,000 soldiers, completely fresh 75,000 soldiers. A lot of people from this army were trained on the Western countries, in England, in Poland, in Spain, in France, and so on. So the Ukrainians, and according to the Western sources, the Ukrainians are going to use this army to start the greatest counteroffensive operation in the south of Ukraine. So let's discuss this topic in more details. For example, deployment map is showing us that there are a lot of regions, at least a few regions on the territory of Ukraine, where the Ukrainians are doing the training process and the collecting of these forces. The first region is the Kremenchuk area. As you can see, there are at least 6 icons. There are 33rd Mechanized Brigade, 13th Jaeger Brigade, there is 88th Mechanized Brigade, there is 117th Mechanized Brigade, there is 116th and 118th Mechanized Brigade. Furthermore, a little bit to the northeast, the Ukrainians are trying to collect and create another artillery, 48th Artillery Brigade. The same story we can find in the south of Ukraine, near Odessa, near the port. There is a 41st Mechanized Brigade, there is 21st Mechanized Brigade, 22nd Mechanized Brigade, and 38th Marine Brigade. Furthermore, if we go to the north, and 37th Marine Brigade. Furthermore, if we are going to the north, we are going to find another brigade in the vicinity of Kiev. There is a 31st Mechanized Brigade located on the south near Belaya Tsarkva, and between Chernihiv and Kiev there is a training center that the Russians attacked with the missiles at the first stage of special operation. There is a 47th Mechanized Brigade and there is a 32nd Mechanized Brigade. So as you can see, the number of brigades is very big. And the Russians did the same job, the Russian mappers did the same job. They tried to accumulate as much information they can, and furthermore they made such a kind of picture showing the brigades and the number of brigades and the quantity and quality and the types of brigade. As you can see, according to the Russian sources, they have calculated around 19th brigade that Ukrainians are going to deploy in the very nearest future. There are mechanized brigade, there is a marine brigades, there are artillery brigades, and according to the Russians, they are saying that Ukrainians are going to deploy 2 artillery brigades. Maybe I haven't found like artillery brigade on the deployment map, but anyway, you see the numbers, you see the quantity. If we take a look at the Russian sources map, they're showing a little bit different areas where the Ukrainians are trying to create the brigades. For example, the deployment map shows a lot of brigades in the vicinity of Kremenchuk area, but the Russians are saying that there is just 31st Marine Brigade, and there are a lot of brigades in the vicinity of Poltava. There are at least 3 brigades of 116th, 31st, and 32nd. It's not the difference. It doesn't matter where exactly the brigades are created. The thing is that they show the same numbers and they show the same types. Furthermore, when talking about Odessa, the Russians are saying that there are no brigades in this area. Very interesting piece of information are coming from Western Ukraine. The Russians are saying that there are at least 6 brigades that are currently under creation process. There is a 72nd, 21st, there is a 82, 33rd, 23rd, and 88th brigades in this area. So as we can see, mainly the Ukrainians are preparing 3 types of brigades. Mechanized brigade to support infantry. There are no tanks brigade at all, as you can see. and both maps and deployment in the Russian sources confirms that the Ukrainians are not creating any of tanks brigade, and the tanks that they're going to receive, they're going to split between the mechanized brigades. Furthermore, and the mechanized brigades has the biggest number in comparison with the other types. Furthermore, the Russians and the Ukrainians deployment sources confirms that there are at least from 1 to 2 artillery brigades that Ukrainians are going to create during this mobilization process, and also there are a lot of stormtroopers brigades like Marine Corps, Marine brigades, and storm brigades. That Ukrainians are going to use to penetrate and to the first wave of attack. And now we understand that the Ukrainians have at least few options what to do next, because within a month or even less, within the next few weeks, the Ukrainians are going to complete the creation process of these brigades. The weather is going to be fine, the real spring is going to come, the quality of ground is going to become better, and the Ukrainians will be able to start their greatest offensive operation. And today, the Western sources and the Ukrainian sources are creating such a media sphere, trying to force us to think that Ukrainians are going to start counter-offensive operation. I'm not saying that they're not going to do this, but let's think a little bit more. If you remember, during the November and October and December of the previous year, the Russians started their own mobilization, and that mobilization helped them to stabilize the front lines in Crimea, on Liman front line. And that mobilization didn't allow the Ukrainians to penetrate the north of LPR and not to take the entire LPR. And we were expecting that the Russians, during the winter, were going to start their own greatest counter-offensive operation. We were drawing some kind of lines, arrows, plans, and so on. But as a result of winter campaign, the Russians haven't started even a single offensive operation. Yes, of course, there is a very heavy clashes in Bakhmut, but you don't need to make mistakes, because it's completely two different types of forces. I'm talking about Wagnerians and Russian forces. The Russians who were mobilized can't leave army until the end of the special military operation. And when talking about Wagnerians, they have signed half-year contracts. And most of the contracts were signed in November and October. So the March and April is the last months when these Wagnerians can stay on the front line. And there are a lot of pieces of information coming from the front line that a lot of Wagners, at least during the March, 5,000 Wagnerians left the front line officially because their contracts were expired. So this is the reason that the Russians were in such a big hurry with this type of forces, because they see that this resource can be ended without even using it. So that was the reason of offensive operation direction of Bakhmut. But when talking about Russian regular army, there were no offensive operation. The only clashes were in the south, near Ugledar and Zaporozhye, but all those attacks didn't bring a lot of success for the Russians. And now let's talk about the Ukrainians. Of course, there is an option that Ukrainians, and there is a very high chances that Ukrainians are going to start their offensive operation during the spring, but something tells me that maybe they're going to do the same as the Russians. They have created 10 more brigades, and there are the number of the forces. The Ukrainians currently have a very powerful army, one of the most powerful army in the world, and after creation of these brigades, they will become even more powerful. And there is one problem from the Ukrainian side. If they want to start this offensive operation, they don't have air support and air superiority. And currently we receive a lot of piece of information saying that, at least in France, the French military authorities start training process of Ukrainian soldiers to use Mirage 2000. So something tells me that there is a very low chance that the Ukrainians are not going to start greatest offensive operation their own during the spring, as the Russians haven't started during the winter, and they will wait until they receive the air forces from France, those Mirage 2000, and there is a chance that the Ukrainians will start their offensive operation somewhere in August or September of this year. It's completely speculation from my side, but anyway, I don't think that it's smart to waste your army without air superiority. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in Ukraine. Thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.